All right, everybody. We're here with the new episode for Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. It's episode 100. So, yay, 100. We made
Looks like we made it.
100. To help us through this episode, we have 4 guests for the first time on one show. I'll go the way I see him on my window here. JT Malloy. JT, thank you for being on the show. It was on our Ghostbusters episode. Dave Buss came on to talk about Super Snooper, the great cop comedy from the 80s.
And Cry Macho.
Yes, and Cry Macho.
Let's not forget.
Yes.
We
Scott
can forget
Gordon was on our Nightmare on Elm Street episode back in one of our first guests back in the early days. And Andy Rohr has been is this your 3rd or 4th episode, Andy? I think you're
3rd.
3rd? Okay. It was supposed to be 4, but we know
that
for you.
Okay. You can just dub us the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse if you want.
Yes,
so.
exactly.
I love it. Yeah.
The way the world's going right now.
I'll be
all right, that'll be the last topical moment, I'll say. All right, so the way this episode's going to work, everybody that's listening, is each guest and us picked something to talk about, picked a topic. So we're going to start with Scott Jordan. Scott, you wanted to talk about the Book of Boba Fett. So tell us why you picked that today.
Well, as a lifelong Star Wars fan, Boba Fett since the Christmas special came out and the whole exclusive Kenner action figure came out was my favorite. While everybody else, like Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Darth Vader, Boba Fett was my guy and nobody else could have him. So one of the worst days of my life was when I went to the movies as a 5-year-old kid and saw Boba Fett get swallowed up by the Sarlacc, never to return. Now, I knew that Boba Fett was still alive. I knew in my heart of hearts that he was still alive. We had some great stuff in the extended universe that's obviously non-canon anymore. But I waited 40 years to see how he came out of the Sarlacc pit. So, the show was much maligned. A lot of criticism there. The ratings were through the roof as expected, but I just wanted to talk about it as both a diehard Star Wars fan and also as a constructive fan as well. And also, a third part of that is somebody who was just happy that Boba Fett is alive and well and 20 years older than he should be in the Star Wars universe.
Yes, that was my thing. So excited when he popped up in The Mandalorian. It's like, yes, proof. And then I'm going to say it, and forgive me, everybody, but I was so disappointed by the way the character was portrayed, and we didn't get the badass bounty hunter that I wanted. It was just kind of like an old, kind of out of shape. Why is the helmet off so much? Why is the helmet off at all, in my opinion? And so, let's go.
You pay Tamara Morrison his respect. His beautiful face deserves to be seen, Wade. I'm tired of people making fun of him.
He's a very attractive man, and I hope that when I'm 60, I look as good as he does. And obviously, he got into shape for the Book of Boba Fett. When we saw him pop up in The Mandalorian, he had some weight on him, so the armor didn't quite fit the way that it should have, which was a big topic on Twitter for Star Wars fans. But when you listen to Favreau and Filoni do interviews and they talk about that story arc, and that was the biggest argument, is everybody wants to see what we got in The Mandalorian when he came back and took out, all the stormtroopers and was just a badass bounty hunter. That was the Boba Fett that we knew and loved, that we always knew was existing out there. And instead we got, this compassionate, guy who wants to lead a crime syndicate, but who's also making unfavorable deals with everybody out there. Even the actor himself, said he thought he was talking too much. And, in interviews that he's done, he said he was begging them to give, his lines to somebody else because he didn't want to do them. He thought he was talking too much. But Favreau and Filoni said that there's no story behind the same character that we saw for 7 entire minutes on screen in the original trilogy. They wanted to change him because he was in the Sarlacc, and they thought that it made him a man. Being with the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders, made him into something different, and that's fine and great. But yeah, I want to see the Boba Fett badassery that we were teased at. And the original concept, one of the original concepts for Return of the Jedi when it was supposed to be just the first part of another trilogy. It was going to be another trilogy that chronicled Luke Skywalker's battle against Darth Vader and the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. The original concept from Return of the Jedi was going to have Boba Fett be the villain. He was going to be the main antagonist of it. After he came out in Empire Strikes Back, and George Lucas wanted to continue the series, it was going to be this big thing. That's why Boba Fett popped up randomly in the Christmas special, and everybody's like, who the hell is that? He was going to be the villain, and that's a story we never got because George Lucas got tired of printing money after Empire Strikes Back.
All right, Andy.
Well, first off, I'm incredibly impressed with Scott's knowledge around this topic, especially yeah, very, very impressed. To start off, I think Star Wars is like very hard, and Scott, you were kind of breaking down, like, you watch it as a fan, you also watch it as, someone that likes TV, movies. It's impossible to separate those two things because there's just so much baggage, particularly baggage from your emotional experience when you're young and what your expectations are for this character, right? I hear Wayne's disappointment in the series, and I know a lot of it centers around him being too soft ultimately. I wonder if the show would have come across more favorably if they started with Cad Bane, spoiler, at the start of the show. So it's kind of a dual story of, they probably spent far too much time of his recovery out of the Sarlacc, but that story along with kind of his dark side, like, no pun intended, of like when he really was that ruthless bounty hunter, rather than we get like at the very end, Cad Bane makes a reference to like, you're not this guy, you're not this compassionate, mayor of, Mos Eisley or whatever. And I feel like if they would have done, like, switched some things around, we probably would have got a better story. I thought Morrison had a strong performance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it gets a little too, for me, and I'm trying to think the best way to describe this, kind of video gamey at the end, where it's just like, it doesn't seem like anybody's a challenge to our heroes. Towards the very end, like, they just whip ass. Fennec Shand, like, they're just killing, everybody in their way, and rather than feeling like there's real tension outside of Cad Bane killing, I'm doing air quotes, Oliphant's character. But overall, it was solid. I mean, I think, to go back to what I was saying, it's like impossible to judge these things because there is that emotional weight of like, I thought Boba Fett was this guy, and I thought he was the coolest character for 30 years, and now he's going to be this guy. I guess you kind of have to compartmentalize it, as a fan. Like,
yeah, I think you do, especially in any franchise, especially one that's run this long. You guys know me, I'm a casual Star Wars fan, so I enjoy most of the content that comes out. With this particular series, I was texting Wayne back and forth as I was watching it. Like, I felt that the first 4 episodes were just a series of clips of like Boba Fett's greatest hits. Like, hey, remember that time that he took this train, which obviously it's all new stuff, but it just felt like, hey, we're going to show this scene. None of the scenes in the first 4 episodes really had anything to do with the last 3 episodes. So I felt like, I told Wayne, I'm like, it's unfortunate that this series got good when it became a Mandalorian series at episode 5. Like, that's how I felt when he comes in. That was the best episode, and then he's in the next 2 episodes, and I'm just like, oh, well, this is kind of what I wanted. Where then I think, Scott, you're saying that Morrison wanted the story to be, less about him talking. I think that would have been it would have been more a great couple episodes of a Mandalorian season than doing a whole 7 episodes on this character. Maybe if they would have gone in the route where, like you said, Andy, where they had 2 main characters in the beginning, where you have the bad guy and you have Boba Fett, and it kind of go. But you're right, they kind of put this cool, badass looking Western character who, again, casual Star Wars fan, had no idea who he was, but he looked awesome. I was like, wow, this is really cool. But there was nothing to him, and then, spoiler alert, by the end of the season, he's gone. So it's just like, it was just weird. I do want to point, I don't know if everyone saw it, but there was a teaser clip at the end where Oliphant is technically still alive. Yeah. So they got to do that because I love my guy Timothy Oliphant.
Back to tanks are an amazing thing now.
Well, and the thing is I think they could do a really cool, and I know Mandalorian's kind of already a Western, but I would love to see just a straight up Western TV show with Oliphant in the Star Wars universe, since he's, that's his thing basically. JT, you got your hand up. What do you want to say here?
Yeah, like you, I'm a casual Star Wars fan. I mean, I know my salacious crumbs from my Sarlaccs or whatever, but like, I never really read the EU and stuff like that, so I was never like a huge Boba Fett guy. But like, I feel like he's one of those things that's like best in small doses, you know. And I kind of wish they would like instead of like announcing like 700 new series, I wish they would have just let the Mandalorian like continue to like season 5 or something, and then they could have. I don't know. I feel like when you were talking about George Lucas didn't like printing money, it was like that's what the Mandalorian was doing. You know what I mean? Like it brought back every supposedly toxic Star Wars fan that like hates everything, and everybody that loves everything. They united them. Like it was like everybody agreed this was good. And then they went for 2 seasons and just dropped it, and it was like, all right, like what? And like they like
it is coming back. It is coming back for a 3rd season.
Okay, gotcha. But like, I mean, like, it was such a punctuation mark, like at the end with Luke Skywalker and stuff, that it was like, it felt like, man, they could have made this like longer. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I felt like they could have focused on that more and had Boba Fett be a side player in that, you know. Rather than like doing the content thing where they got to spin somebody off to something else all the time.
And I get the feeling too that this is going to be the only season of Boba Fett. I don't think we're going to see anymore. And I think what they're going to do, he's going to pop up because now he's the new Jabba in that city. He's going to pop up in episodes when they need to go there and they need him for something. And I think they could have just done that and kept like this could have been Mandalorian season 3. And you could have had Mandalorian in and out of the season like they did. But you make it this whole 7 episodes, and it's just kind of, like I said, it was just the first 4 episodes I just felt were, like it was entertaining. The train scene was probably one of the best things in the show. I just wish it was part of a story that mattered more. And it was just kind of like, hey, this cool thing. And then we find out that all those guys are dead too, like, in episode 6, where we didn't even know that before. That was a really weird, like, drop in, like, oh, and by the way, he thinks someone else killed him, but I killed them. I'm like, I didn't even know they were dead. Like, so it was really weird. Bus, go ahead.
I just want to jump in. Scott had said early on in this that to me, the Boba Fett is like the strong silent type. So having him be more than that at first kind of throws me off. Like what my early action figure of Boba Fett was the coolest one, besides like Chewbacca. So I think you made a Kenner reference, didn't you, Scott?
Yes.
And,
yes.
And like it early on, Boba Fett didn't talk, right? Boba Fett came in, kicked ass, left, and did something cool and then left. So I think for me, it took. It does take really good writing then, because I always thought of him as like this strong, silent bounty hunter, comes in, gets his dough, leaves, deals with Jabba the Hutt, people like that, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm definitely an old school guy on that. So, yeah. But he looks cool.
Yeah, there were some bright spots, and the way that when they brought Boba back in the Mandalorian season 2, the way they had him in those last couple episodes, that is Boba Fett. He had a couple lines here and there. He was, dominant. He had some zingers. At one point, Din was asking him if he could go into the Empire base, and he said, "I think they'd recognize my face." It was just a little quip, one-liner there. I thought was pretty clever. Just stuff like that. There were some things they did right. Cobb Vanth was a great character in the extended universe, and the fact we got him in live action, the fact we got Cad Bane in live action is mm-hmm. great. The Rancor, Boba riding the Rancor, one of the bright spots of the EU, seeing that there. But there were some things that they really, my expectations for this were way too high, and I knew that from the start. I had no expectations for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I think maybe that's why I liked it so much. I had so many high expectations for Boba Fett. The Sarlacc scene was a major disappointment, an absolute major disappointment. I love that we didn't have to wait to get it. It was right there in that beginning 5 minutes of the show. But the fact that he's down there for 45 seconds and there's a random stormtrooper, that may or may not have been from A New Hope doing, the sweep for the droids. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen some of the other characters that fell in, the Weequay guard that fell in before him. I would have loved to see him in there just for continuity purposes. I would have loved to see a little more of him getting out of the Sarlacc, because there's a great novel called A Barv Like That, which Tales of a Bounty Hunter, which chronicles Boba in the Sarlacc pit, and he's down there. He makes contact with the Sarlacc, who like absorbs the consciousness of every person, every being that he eats. So he's talking to the Sarlacc, and there's other people down there that are dying over 1,000 years, and Boba's getting burned and tortured, and he tricks the Sarlacc into releasing him or clutching around what's left of his jetpack to ignite a little bit of it, and then he drops a bomb in there and gets out. And then there's another comic where he does that. He gets out. The Jawas pick him up in the Sandcrawler. He has complete amnesia. Han Solo meets him there. They stop and Han Solo gets on, and then something crazy happens and the Sandcrawler starts running out of control. At the last minute, Boba recognizes Han, who's trying to pull Boba out of this Sandcrawler, and Boba starts firing at him because he remembers who he is, and then Boba ends up back in the Sarlacc pit again, this time in a Sandcrawler. So there's some cool things in the EU that did this in a more action-packed way. I just think that there's some fan films on YouTube that did it in a better way. And I love Favreau Filoni. I love what they've done to the Star Wars universe. I was very disappointed with the lack of creativity that went into him escaping from something that we wanted to see him escape from for, almost 40 years.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was because I remember, I know we had talked about this before, Scott, at Feld, and I was like, I'm like, oh, this is what you were looking for. So when I was watching the show too, I was kind of watching it through your eyes because I know you're such a huge fan. So I was like trying to like what you would want. And when he escapes that Sarlacc pit, I was like, that was it? Like he was out in like 5 seconds? I'm like, that doesn't really make any sense. It was real quick and didn't really, I think, like you said, give everybody what they wanted, waiting for that long to see him, come out heroically from that thing. And it was just like, oh yeah, he's out now. And that was it. Yeah. So, Wayne, go ahead.
Two things, I guess. I don't think he needed to not be in 2 whole episodes, basically. That was a miss for me, just because I feel like it was misdirected. I don't think we needed to see Luke Skywalker in this season or this series either. Mandalorian, I get, but we didn't need the Luke stuff. And believe me when I say that when they reintroduced Luke at the end of Mandalorian season 2, I wept tears of joy. I'm like, I was that like excited for it. I know that all that whatever, but I don't care who knows and who doesn't know. But I don't think that it was needed in Boba Fett. I think it was just a distraction. I don't think that the Mandalorian needed a whole episode with the Darksaber either. I think it was all distraction. Yeah, 2. Excuse me. Yeah, 2. So I just wanted to say that because it was something that really bothered me, and I don't
think we're done with Boba Fett. I think you are right in that there won't be a season 2, but I do think he'll pop back up maybe in the Mandalorian. There were all kinds of hints in those episodes where Din was the main character, and I thought maybe this was the payoff at the end where Boba Fett was going to become Mandalore and go back to his ancestry and rise up and rule, because there were all kinds of hints just everywhere, like little inside things. If you know the story and you know the different history behind it, that you thought was going to be the payoff at that point, was that Boba was going to go back, and maybe that will be the ultimate payoff, but I don't know.
Andy?
Well, I was just going to say, I can't believe we've gone 20 minutes and haven't talked about those cybernetic kids.
Yeah, I went from my brain. They weren't even there as far as I was concerned.
It's interesting. Disney has so much content. I mean, they could make endless. They should make the book, Scott, that you mentioned. That's what they redo the series.
A cooler story.
Just make that book. That was you describing that was more entertaining than the Book of Boba Fett. So, like, just that little section. So, but they've got to fill content. They could really go. They could make up shit, right? I mean, like they can go bananas with it.
There was going to be a movie that was greenlit that was going to be Boba Fett, and it was going to focus a lot on his escape from the Sarlacc and his recovery and regaining being the greatest bounty hunter and the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy. That was a go. Disney had it said it was going to be directed by Josh Trank, who ruined, to everyone's knowledge, the Fantastic Four. And the 20th Century Fox had a lot of issues with him, so that movie was shelved, and then it became the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. right before I get to Wayne here, I just want to say too, like when Wayne talked about the Luke stuff, I was texting him, but like I liked the Luke stuff in this. Like I agree, it didn't have to be in here. They need to normalize recasting these characters. I know it's sacrilegious to say this, but I felt that he had the dead eye, and the CGI on making Luke young was weird, and his voice sounded strange. Because I know they had to take Mark Hamill's voice and they had to make it young again. All of it sounded weird to me, and I was like just taken out of it in that moment.
Well, his voice was done with the same app that they used for James Earl Jones. The revoice technology was what they used for Luke as well, to de-age his voice, as well as what they did with Darth Vader. So
yeah, I did not. I haven't seen Obi-Wan yet, so I can't say that, but I did not like that in this series. I think that they just need to cast, as we talked about, Wayne Sebastian Stan. He looks almost just like him. Make a whole series out of Luke. I'm fine with that. But if they do a whole series of Luke where it's Mark Hamill, but they DH him 50 years, I don't think I'm going to be able to watch the whole series. That's all. Wayne, you had your hand up before. Go ahead.
Yep, I was going to comment on that as well. And much like Tamura, I think it's time to recast as well. Sacrilege, I know, but we can't. One, from a price point, the amount of money that it costs to do all the stuff in post, to de-age and de-voice, it's... God, I can't believe I'm saying this. Yeah, it is time for Mark to pass the reins, which I'm sure he will happily do, because he seems like the kind of guy that wants to keep Star Wars going, and he's not going to be offended and throw a tantrum or anything like that. Kind of like,
wait, they're not redoing Corvette Summer?
I'm cool with recasting. I'm one of those weirdos who really loved Solo, so...
Right, exactly.
I had no problem with that guy. Like, I thought he was pretty good as a young Han Solo.
Like,
I don't know.
But, the Han versus, I forget what the actor's name was.
Alden, Aaron, and Rick.
Yes. Was not so thrilled as to hear that was coming out. And I get it, but, and then again, that's kind of like a segue into the toxic fandom and whatnot. I don't know. We're ready for that yet. So
with Boba Fett, though, Daniel Logan is out there. I don't think anybody would have had an issue with Daniel Logan playing Boba Fett. He is right there in canon as that age. He played young Boba Fett. I don't think any Star Wars fans would have had an issue. Obviously, there's continuity problems with the clones and having Tamura's face, but I think Daniel Logan, and I thought Tamura did a great job. I really did. I loved his performance. I just think from an age standpoint, Boba Fett should not look like he is in his 60s when he is supposed to be, a 40-year-old man.
Agreed.
But again, I guess the Sarlacc juices tend to make your skin bubble a little bit so that you get older.
Well, not to take anything away from Tamura, because Tamura is a great actor and he's very underappreciated. And I think it was great to have this show, which has a very diverse cast at the top with him and Ming-Na Wen, and that's awesome. But at the same point, it's like, yeah, you're right. Like it didn't have to be him, but because, and Kathleen Kennedy came out recently and said this, the biggest issue she felt with Solo was that trying to get people to take Alden seriously as Han Solo. And it's like, no, like that like I didn't care for Han Solo that much, for Solo as much as it was okay. I didn't hate it or anything, but he wasn't the reason I didn't like it. I had no problem with him. It was just, to me, the movie didn't work as well. But you can't, I hate the Star Wars universe is the one universe, and this is, again, we're gonna seg right into Wayne's discussion here. They've been trying the last couple times curtail everything to the fans. It happened on Rise of Skywalker. It happened with I think with Boba Fett. They knew the fans wanted this show, so that's why we got this show. Now they didn't seem to know how to make it, and I think with Kathleen Kennedy's response to everything, I think we're just going to get more of that. It's going to be more of what the fans want, and that is a horrible, horrible way to run your business. Because it's usually the minority that's speaking out on the internet. We all know this by now. They're not the majority at this point. And to make your series based on what they think, if you don't like it, don't like it. But you don't have to attack
the actors and
attack the actors like recently with Obi-Wan. You don't have to go after the producers, the directors, Rian Johnson. If you didn't like The Last Jedi, don't fucking like The Last Jedi. But you know what? You don't have to go on and talk about how he's the worst person to have ever existed, okay? It's not fucking
He's a great filmmaker for sure.
He is, and I like The Last Jedi. I'm one of the few, but it's one of those things. Aside from the critics, the critics really liked it, but it was just it's one of those things. All right, so Scott, before we get, I know I said not to go off on tangents, and I'm here going off on a tangent.
You
want to put a button on Boba Fett for us here?
I enjoyed Boba Fett from the standpoint that I am a Star Wars fan and a Boba Fett fan, and I'm happy that he is alive in the Star Wars universe and can be used in other projects. So that, to me, seeing him back on screen, Tamora Morrison, I did think did a great job. So I did like it. I liked the first episode, minus, I thought they should have done at least a little more for the Sarlacc. And the last episode I thought was a reprieve of the 2 Mandalorian-centric episodes. I thought the last episode with him riding the Rancor and getting the better of Cad Bane, that shootout right there, period, made the series for me, like going back to Clone Wars and Rebels and all that. So I liked it, and my final thought on this is that we've realized that the de-age technology works on everybody now except for Hayden Christensen. Doesn't work on him.
Yeah.
Works on everybody else, but he looked older than Obi-Wan in that series. So maybe
I
there's
was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet. That's funny though. That's funny.
Yeah.
They didn't want to touch that beauty. That's why he's a beautiful man. All right. Wayne, so your choice today was basically Star Wars and Toxic Fandom. So that could be like a 7-hour podcast.
Right.
But tell us, you get us started here. Tell us what you wanted to really talk about today.
Yeah, and like instead of choosing something else for another video or a movie for us to watch, I just wanted to have just a discussion, following up on Scott's choice here, and just the people that just are never happy. Now, we talked briefly just now, like about how people were okay with The Last Jedi, or you liked it. I did not like it, and it's not for. It was a beautifully shot. It looked great. It sounded great. It just, especially The Last Jedi and in The Rise of Skywalker, it was just a hodgepodge mess. We did not get the answers to the questions that were set up in The Force Awakens. That's what bothered me. Character development kind of stalled. The most interesting characters, they never went anywhere. And it kind of just recycled a lot of the original trilogy. And and I'm not this is just for me. It's not negative or bad. If you love these movies, that's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. For me, it was just a missed opportunity. But to see these people just attack the actors, like forgive me, I forget the actor's name, but the one who played Rose Tico, she was lambasted by people on social media. Why? The Rian Johnson hate. Just because you didn't like his movie, that doesn't mean he's a shitty director. That doesn't mean he makes awful movies. You didn't like it. But there's no need to attack somebody personally or their work for it. Be constructive criticism. What happened to that? And I just wanted to just touch on this and just, you cannot like something and it doesn't have to be the end of the world or like canceling somebody's career because of it. So just wanted to give everybody a little time to talk on this. So
I have a lot of experience of getting roasted on social media for, people not liking what I do sometimes on television. So I can speak to this. You can't make everybody happy. You never are going to be make everybody happy. You got to, as a Star Wars fan, you're never going to make me happy. But as I've gotten older, I've been able to appreciate just having Star Wars around still. And as much as we have Star Wars around now, I mean, think back to after the prequel series, we didn't get anything for a long time. So the fact that now we have Disney Plus and we have all these series that are coming out, we still have movies that are coming out. I think it's great. But it is a toxic fandom because everybody cherishes these movies so much. These, for me, in my age bracket, the original trilogy was just like a huge part of my childhood. So it's sacrilegious for me. So when somebody, takes it and doesn't do what I as a fan feel like they should have done, it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean I have to like it. But it's the way they went, and I have to respect it. But it took us 20 years to like the prequels. Everybody hated the prequels when they came out. Yep. Now everybody, is praising the prequels. So maybe in 20 years from now, everybody will like this new trilogy as well. I didn't have too much of an issue with Rise of Skywalker because I didn't expect much going in. I thought the Palpatine storyline was a little insane and a little far-fetched. But again, it was good to see an original trilogy character still alive and well in Star Wars.
Yes.
Bus.
I'm probably the most casual Star Wars fan of this this uh, panel, and I will say that since a little kid, I rode my bicycle to go see. I call it Star Wars One. It's just Star Wars, But and
It's
then
just called
Return of the
Star
Jedi.
Wars back then, yeah.
Right. But I guess I look at it like my wife and I saw the latest Jurassic Park or Jurassic World or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for me, because I'm a casual fan, I don't know a lot of backstory. Like I'm a Chewbacca and Boba Fett fan. I mean, that's where I'm at. But my point being is, I want to be entertained, right? So I can always have something that I enjoy about the film. Unfortunately, not having a lot of backstory probably keeps me ignorant to being offended by the lack of a storyline for you guys who are diehard fans. So for me, like last night was Jurassic World. I mean, I wanted to see Maverick, but my wife really wanted to see Jurassic World, and so we saw it, and it was entertaining, and the special effects were good. The storyline was jack shit. I mean, it's just like, let's take every thought we ever had, throw it in. It was like Cry Macho. Let's take 20 ideas, throw it in a hat, and as we pull them out, that's how we're going to make this film. But at the end, I was entertained. It got over with, and I'm like, okay, it's over with, and I don't feel like I was robbed. So, but when people are so diehard, I think it's a turnoff for me because I feel like I'm out of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'll say. I love the passion that the Star Wars fans have.
Of course, and I think you see passion in other areas too, and I think you see some in Jurassic World. I'm going to make a statement here, it's my own opinion, obviously, but I'm glad you brought up Jurassic World. I took my son to see it. He loves that franchise. He loved it. He thought it was great. He didn't care what the story was. He loved seeing the new dinosaurs, and that's really all he cared about. But I look at Jurassic the same way I look at Star Wars. For Jurassic, there's one great movie, and that's Jurassic Park. There's one awful movie, and to me, it's Jurassic Park 3. I know some people actually like that movie, and the rest are just okay. And with Star Wars, the greatest movie they ever made was Empire Strikes Back. Nothing to me has ever topped that or will. My least favorite is Phantom Menace. So that's everything else just falls in the middle there. That's how I am. But again, I'm a casual fan of both those franchises. I don't consider myself like Jurassic Park's not one of my favorite movies, which I know a lot of people from our generation it is because it was that big blockbuster in 1993. It was what Jaws was in 1975. That's what that was in 1993. I get it, but it's a great movie, but it's not one of my favorites. So I understand people having an affinity to that. The same with Star Wars. But it just, to me, I'm like, yeah, but Wrath of Khan is also up there with those two great science fiction films. And there's not as much, there is some of this in Star Trek, but it's not as much as it is in Star Wars. Andy, what would you like to say?
Oh, you guys are just hitting on a ton of great stuff, but I'm glad you spoke on the hit ratio of Jurassic Park movies, and it's like 1 out of 6.
Basically.
Good. But yeah, I mean, that speaks to like the ridiculous high expectations people have for Star Wars based on critical praise and just their emotional feelings of the original trilogy. For a lot of these people that are bitching online, it's the most important thing in their lives. Mm-hmm. And that's how a lot of these, talk about toxic fandom. That's how it is, and that's how that stuff kind of festers, and then it kind of goes into whether it's sexist or racist. You mentioned Kelly Marie Tran earlier, and then the latest woman from Obi-Wan. Yeah, it kind of morphs into that too. So it just becomes one giant cesspool. But again, is this the high expectations of the Star Wars universe? I don't think you mentioned Jurassic Park. Star Trek doesn't quite have that type of fandom. I think there's just fewer casual people involved too. But yeah, I mean, it's just the most important thing in their world, and their precious little baby. To think of a line from another famous trilogy that had a bad prequel trilogy, Lord of the Rings. They just don't want anybody to touch it, and what their idea of it is sacred.
Well, and JT, I'll get to you in a second here, but you just reminded me. Someone I went to high school with on Facebook posted when Jurassic World Dominion came out. please nobody go see that movie because then they'll stop making it. I'm like, come on, man. Like, really? Like, it's gone beyond you at this point. Just don't go fucking see it. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. I'm sorry. Like, that's just how I feel now. JT, go ahead.
I have like, there are so many dissertations on Star Wars, you know what I mean, and like what it means to people and why people don't like this and that and stuff like that. And sometimes the one I go back to, and my opinion shifts on the whole thing sometimes, but sometimes the one I go back to is that the original is really the only true one, you know, where it's like this was like a space western based off Flash Gordon that was like goofy and fun and like made like in more ways than Jaws like made the blockbuster, you know, and like that was a self-contained story. Farm boy defeats the evil space Nazis, everybody wins in the end, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't have the episode 4 crawl originally. Like, George Lucas changes his mind on what he planned all the time, so it's like depending on what making of Star Wars book you read or whatever, like he'll have a different story about like, oh, I intended it to be 9, or I intended it to be this, or I intended it to be this. So it's like, that's all, just throw all that out the window, and what you're left with is like a single adventure movie, just like Raiders of the Lost Ark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't until the re-release of that movie in 1980, I think, that was like they added the episode 4 A New Hope crawl, and then they had Empire Strikes Back, which is an amazing movie, but it's also when the retcons started. You know what I mean? That's when the whole Darth Vader thing started, and like it's like no matter what he says, like Darth Vader was not his father in the first movie whatsoever. Yep. So it's like that's when those little saga things trickled in. Instead of being like a one-off adventure goofy movie, it suddenly became a saga, and then it just opened the floodgates for the kind of fandom we have now. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know, sometimes that's what I go back to. Other times I'm like, I enjoy the saga. It's fun. And like the new ones, they had no direction, which was annoying.
That was the big mistake.
The prequels had a path, but the movies themselves weren't as entertaining as the old ones. The new ones were very entertaining and well made, but had no path. You know what I mean? So
well, they had, and even when they tried, like, so we'll get you in a second, Scott. But when they did Force Awakens, obviously there was a lot of nostalgia in that one. That's what that movie was meant to be. And then with Last Jedi, they're like, oh well, let's, that everyone liked that one. Let's let Ryan do what he wants to do. And I'm like, that's a great idea if you follow up with it. But instead, what they did, they got scared and they told JJ to come back after they fired Colin Trevorrow and to basically like get the fans back. So then it basically, like, a lot of things that happen in Last Jedi just kind of go away story wise. And I know a lot of people were happy with that. But then you're left with Rise of Skywalker, where you get this story that probably should have been cooking over all 3 movies that they
all
just
three.
They
all 3 of those movies told 3. All 3 of those movies told 3 different stories.
They are. Right, they really are. And you almost look at them as, and that's why I have no problem. Like, I could watch Last Jedi on its own right now and probably be just as satisfied because it doesn't matter. There's no conclusion anyway. Right. So, Scott, sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah. No, I got one final thought, and then I got to bounce. But listen, for me, and this is that old tale of how our grandparents used to tell us that when they had to go to school, they had to walk up 3 Mile Hill and no shoes in the snow. Well, when I was a kid, we had action figures galore, which sometimes we had to mail away for, and we had Burger King glasses. That's all we had at Star Wars. Now we have this entire universe that has been created with dollars that were revenue from these new movies that we got. It started with the new trilogy that came out, and yes, could it have been better? Of course. Am I a script writer for movies? No, I'm not. I could not have done a better job than what they did at that. I wouldn't have even attempted. It's not going to make everybody happy. There were a lot of different things, but the fact of the matter is we got to see Harrison Ford back on screen as Han Solo, which is something that he said he was never going to do and something we never thought was going to happen. We got to see Mark Hamill back in Luke Skywalker. We got to see Carrie Fisher in her final movie role, which was Princess Leia. We got to see all these great original trilogy characters back on screen one more time, or at least we think one more time, to tell this story and to get this universe. Now we can go to Disney World and get on the Millennium Falcon for the price of $6,000, we can stay on a Disney Star Cruiser, which I don't have, so that's never going to happen for me. But we can do it; it's an option. And Star Wars toys are now everywhere. Every store, you can't go anywhere without seeing Star Wars shirts and toys. And for me as a fan, I'm just happy that they continue this, and I'm happy that Disney has it to where they can put the money and the respect and the appreciation, and they're still playing with it. You mentioned Colin Trevor, who I think is a great director. I think he's done wonders with the Jurassic Park franchise. It didn't work out with him, so they tweaked that and brought J.J. Abrams back, and then that didn't work out, so they went and brought Dave Filoni in and Jon Favreau in, and now that seems to be working, but they're still tweaking it. They are listening to us as fans. They are making adjustments, and they're trying to give us what we are asking for as old school fans, but also entertain a brand new audience, which are kids out there that now love my daughter, my youngest daughter, my oldest daughter Lily, who's 6, loves Star Wars. I could have never thought in a million years she loves it. She loves Darth Vader. Darth Vader's in Fortnite now, and I love Fortnite. She likes Fortnite, so we play Fortnite together and try to get Darth Vader's lightsaber. She watched Obi-Wan Kenobi with me. She's not scared of it. She loves it. So the fact that I can share that with my daughter now, after my parents shared it with me, for me, that's great. And yes, I can be opinionated and say I want Boba Fett to be a badass bounty hunter. I'm not going to get Boba Fett being a badass bounty hunter. Does that mean I'm going to go on Twitter and bitch and moan about it? No, it means I'm going to still buy my Boba Fett shirts. Wayne, you've seen my office. It's monster trucks and Boba Fett. I have a 1980 Kenner Slave 1 on my office next to Gravedigger. So, I'm going to stay here as a Star Wars fan no matter what. And, I'll keep going to the movies as long as they keep making them and putting them out on Disney Plus. I'm just grateful, and I wish more old school fans that are hardcore like that would take that mantle and be appreciative of what we have now. Because at any point in time, Disney could just say, you know what, we're done with this franchise. We don't want to do it anymore. It's too much money. Let's move on and create, the 50th season of The Simpsons.
Oh God.
well put. Going out on the high note, like Costanza, Scott.
Yeah,
ready now.
That's my TED talk. So
that's good though. You sound like a real fan, like somebody that actually like. It's like you don't sit there. You don't have to chug like everything as if like enjoy it no matter what. But like you can be critical, but you still have like the enthusiasm. You know what I mean? And like I try to keep that alive in like the kind of fandoms I'm into. It's hard sometimes, but you know what I mean. Like at the end of the day, like that's what it should feel like. Like I still like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. All right. I'm sorry. Scott, you got to go. So we'll say goodbye. Thank you, sir, for being part of this.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. And we'll definitely have you on again.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
you so
100.
much.
100. All right. Have a good one.
All right, to wrap up my little Star Wars bookend here, and I think those are great talking points, and I'm glad we all didn't agree completely on everything. I just want to say, I did go online to voice my, let down feelings, I guess, but not to be critical, like, it's not right, I don't like it. The biggest miss was that you didn't have Luke, Han, and Leia in a scene together, and that's what made me sad, and that's where I'll leave it as that. I didn't get it. Okay, let's carry on and see what else you can get me.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely right with that, and I think a lot of people were missing that. I would like to equate, though, to how Scott feels about showing these things to his children, and I'm sure Andy, if you already haven't, you'll start to feel that when you start showing your kids something you love. But with Marvel, I've had that with Marvel, with Donovan. Like the fact he basically secretly got into it behind my back without telling me. And then like now we watch all the movies, we go to the theaters, we watch all the TV shows together. Like it's great to have something like that with your child to get into. So go ahead, Andy. I know you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, for me, and relaying off of Scott to you, like a great gateway are the Lego shows for Star Wars and then Marvel. Like the writers for those, as an adult you'll watch them, you'll laugh. I promise. They're on Disney Plus. I totally recommend the Star Wars Holiday Special with Lego characters. I promise you'll laugh. They poke fun at the movies at the same, poke fun, but they also love it, right? And they treat the Marvel characters in the same way. Like there's a stupid recurring joke where Hawkeye is always eating hot dogs, but it's like, and that helps get kids into it, right? So I know it's at the end of the day, like this is a capitalist system, and we're making money off this, but it's great to share those things,
I think that's a great vehicle, Randy. Is that, for instance, like the Batman Lego
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's hilarious.
I don't know. It may have been more entertaining. This people may kill me than the last Batman. I'm still waiting
on this.
I'm still waiting for something to happen in that movie. It's over with.
Wow.
It's actually over with.
But that soundtrack, though.
Yes.
Yes.
Now that I get to hear that Nirvana song on the radio every fucking day when I turn it on, I'm like, I remember this song 900 times now.
I think too, off track here, a tangent, but I saw Zoe Kravitz one where she was like the Google voice person. I think, you know what I'm talking? Maybe a little too close to Batman, and it was very quiet and slow. So I think it was blending the two characters. Minus the hair color.
Batman, by the way, Dave Buss does not speak for me.
Yes. Yeah. No. But Wayne, to your point of fandom, and let me leave you. This will be my final opinion because I, once again, I'm in the weeds when you guys started going like two character deep with Boba Fett and whatever. So I'm like, yeah, but it was kind of entertaining. You know, I like the story. But one time I won tickets to an adult, adult actor? I don't know, a porno convention. I won tickets, and it was in Vegas. And here's my point: I went, right. I'm a casual fan of porn, but my point being is there are people
for about 35 minutes
that were exactly. There was people going crazy, talking plot and storylines with the actresses, and I'm busting out laughing because I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, were you entertained? I mean, did you give it 3.5 boners or do you give it 5 boners? Like, you know, that's how I would rate these, you know. So like, are you entertained? Or are you not entertained? To break down a storyline on some things, it's just like,
here's the funny thing that I don't know if you guys know about, but they made a Star Trek Picard porno, and people loved it so much that they cut the pieces of the movie together that were not porn and released it on YouTube as a full movie that you could watch because they thought it was like a great episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I'll be back. I'll keep my mic live.
Andy, go ahead.
I just love the segue, and it can only happen with Dave Buss on. Here we go from talking about getting kids into fandoms, and then 30 seconds later, a porn convention. You know?
Exactly.
I
wasn't surprised at all.
Yeah.
Andy, your final thoughts on the Star Wars fandom?
Oh, I mean, well, I was going to say the Teen Titans DC movie is fantastic, too. We're talking about anime.
Teen Titans Go. Teen Titans Go is hilarious.
I haven't watched
it. So funny.
I remember you, Andy, telling me to watch the movie because you said it was really
good. Especially it was during that particularly horrible DC dry spell where like every like live action thing sucked hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was like so much better, and unfortunately, it didn't get enough buzz. I don't know if that's, you know, Robin's not a leading man, I guess is the bottom line.
That's what the movie was about too.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right, so we're going to put a wrap on the Star Wars conversation. Again, we'll probably have several more podcasts in the future about this because we've only really ever talked about Star Wars as a franchise and now the Toxic Fandom. We've never really got into the movies yet, so it's like
I think you got to do the new movies revisited because I know there's a lot of conflict about the Last Jedi.
Well, and I think we made the point on our last podcast when you were on, Andy, and we talked Star Wars. The reason I think, and I was going to say when Scott was talking about it, the reason that the prequels are getting more love is the kids that grew up on the prequels are now adults. Mm-hmm. So they're talking about those movies as if it's something from their childhood. And guess what? In 20 years, the kids from these movies are going to be adults. And the same thing's going to happen. They're going to be like, oh my God, Last Jedi was amazing. Or I love The Rise of Skywalker. How could you not like that movie? It's going to have the same reaction, I think. And that's what's important with this franchise. As much as I'm a casual fan, I appreciate the fact that kids from generations to generations discover these movies. And if someone comes to me and they're like, oh my God, Phantom Menace is amazing, I'm not going to immediately go, no, you're wrong. It was terrible. It's my least favorite movie, which is what I hate when people do on Twitter. Someone will comment like, oh my God, I love this movie. And the first comment is, I didn't think it was that good. No one fucking asked you, dude. Like that's like, put that on your own Twitter page. You don't need to come to somebody else's Twitter account and just say shit to start shit. That's my big.
You're right. Like my niece loves Rey. You know, what am I going to call her, an SJW shill?
Yeah,
not-
right. Exactly. Like,
You know what I mean?
let them let people. My biggest thing about Toxic Fandom is let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. As long as it's not hurting anybody, it doesn't matter.
Excuse me, no, we need to tell them that they're wrong because their reasons for liking this are just not subsequential.
One of the things I always like to say is every movie is somebody's favorite movie. So no matter
Exactly.
how much you feel about that movie, remember that there's somebody out there that's like, man, fucking Biodome is the greatest movie ever made. No, they may be a fucking moron, but they
may
have
not
the
be
right.
wrong.
Do you think somebody's favorite movie is Southland Tales?
Yes, there's somebody out there who loves Southland Tales.
Ronald Reagan, the actor?
Hasta la vista, baby.
Hey, everybody, we're all gonna get laid.